Hello and welcome to today's video. I am Shannon and I'm so excited to do this video because I mentioned it after our last cruise that I was going to do this and I just haven't had a chance to get around to doing it, and finally I am. And that is, I am going to be comparing the Oasis class to the Quantum class. Now, I have been on the Oasis class 3 times. We have been on the Oasis, the Allure, first right when they came out, like I want to say 2011 and 2012. And then we were on the Symphony back in 2019. And then we just got off the Odyssey of the Seas in March, so like 2 months ago. And so we've been on just one of the Quantum class ships and then 3 of the Oasis class ships. But I wanted to kind of compare the 2 of them and which one we prefer, one as a couple and then what we prefer as a family. So that's what I'm going to get into right now. Now, I do want to say that we enjoy both ships. We always loved the Oasis class. Actually, when we first got on the Oasis class, it was amazing, so much that we were overwhelmed the first time. Again, in 2011 and 2012, that was when we went on them, and that was before our son was born, and it was overwhelming. There was just so much to do. And then we went in 2019, and that was the first time we took our son on a Royal Caribbean ship. He was about 3.5, and it was fantastic, but there were some things that were not good for that age. And for that age, the big thing was the splash-away bay on the ship. Great splash-away bay, amazing, it looks great. However, the slides were all 42 inches height requirement. So my son, I think, was probably about 38 inches at the time, so he was 3.5, and he couldn't, he had been going on slides since he was like 2, and slides like at Disney World, the Disney World Resort, so he had been going on those for a while. These slides were not even half the size of those, but the height requirement was 42 inches. So we went to Splash-Away Bay first time we got on the ship, and he just wanted to go on the slides. He couldn't, and it was just a meltdown. I mean, if you are a parent and you've had a 3-year-old, there's just no, communicating at that point. So at that point, we pretty much had to avoid the pool deck the rest of the time because all he wanted to do was go on those slides. And that was very unfortunate. So fortunately for us, it was only a 3-night trip. It was a Memorial Weekend, 3-night sailing. So it wasn't that inconvenient. If it had been a 7-night sailing, that would have been really inconvenient. So I would say, now, the Splash-Away Bay on the Odyssey is quite small. Honestly, now we have a 6-year-old and he was kind of bored. There was 2 slides. There was a really small one that had no height requirement, and then there was one that did have a 42 inch. I don't know why, because it was pretty lame. Like my son, he barely, finished it. He was kind of coming out, if you watch the vlogs, he was really, really slow coming out of it. But it does have a 42 inch height requirement. I don't know why, but there were a lot of little kids. He was kind of bored with that slide. That slide didn't really, impress him, but he enjoyed the rest of the splash pad, but he did get bored. I noticed most of the kids on there were smaller. So the Odyssey, I would think, if you have a child under 42 inches, then the Odyssey ship would be better, because the Splash-Away bays on the other ships, with the exception of the Allure, and the Allure only because the Allure was not refurbished when it was supposed to be refurbished in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020, so the renovations got scrapped and it has not been refurbed. So that's the only one that doesn't have the full Splash-Away bay like the Oasis, the Symphony, the Harmony, and the Wonder. So those are the ships that I'm referring to. The Allure is kind of in a secondary category at this point. But the Odyssey, and from what I'm seeing as far as the other Quantum class ships, they all have smaller splash pads, but they're probably better for kids under 42 inches who can't really use the slides. However, if you have a child that is over 42 inches that does like the slides, then the Oasis class is definitely going to be better. They are going to be bored with the Splash-Away bay on the Quantum class ships. So the next category is going to be Adventure Ocean. And obviously when we were on the Symphony, he was 3.5. So he was in the, I guess, juniors category, and he was 3 to 5, but he had a great time. He absolutely loved it. And we were on the Odyssey. He was then on the 6, and he was there pretty much all the time. There were times where he just only wanted to go to Adventure Ocean. He was there a lot. He absolutely loved it, and it was great. So I would say as far as Adventure Ocean is concerned, I think they're pretty comparable. So I don't think that's going to be a difference on the ships. Obviously a lot's going to depend on the Adventure Ocean staff, but for our experience, they have both been fantastic. Next up is going to be the shows, and I've mentioned this before, we are not show people. However, the one thing that the Oasis class has that the Odyssey or Quantum class does not, has that Broadway show. So a lot of the Oasis class has Grease, Hairspray, I forgot what other ones they have right now, but they have a lot of Chicago was another one. So they have that one Broadway show, and then among other shows, they also have the dive show, which is amazing, as well as the ice skating show. On the Odyssey, they had the Tap Factory, which I absolutely loved. It was fantastic. They had the book, which was visually beautiful. I didn't really get it, but a lot of people love it. I think it just was a little bit over my head. And then the effectors was also very good. But I think for the most part, the show's pretty comparable, depending on what you like. Personally, I like the shows more on the Oasis because I think the dive show is something very unique. I really, really love the dive show. I also love the ice skating show. I love going to see the ice skating show. That's not only on the Oasis class, but also on the Freedom and the Voyager class as well. But I did kind of miss that on the Odyssey class. It's always fun to go and watch the ice skaters in their performances, as well as the divers. Like the dive shows are always absolutely incredible. Now, I did enjoy the shows on the Odyssey, even though we aren't show people. But I think it just depends on what you prefer. And if you are someone who just always likes the shows, then you're probably going to be happy. I think they're great on all the ships. If you are someone like us that you could take them or leave them, it's really not going to matter. So the next up is going to be dining. And now we didn't get to experience too much of the dining on the Odyssey. We did the main dining room 2 nights, and we did the solarium, which we had done on the Symphony, which was very, very comparable, very similar experiences. We had scheduled some of the specialty dining, but if you watch my vlog, I did get a stomach virus, so all of that was scrapped. Now, we have not been on the Symphony in a while since post-COVID or any of the Oasis class ships. The Windjammer in the Odyssey was amazing. Like, it was by far at least comparable to the Freedom that we've been on 3 times. It was fantastic. Like, Freedom, the Windjammer was good. On the Odyssey, it was just fantastic. So we actually ate dinner there a couple times. So main dining room, pretty similar. The food was very similar. We didn't get to experience any of the specialty dining, but I did meet some other people that did, and they said it was fantastic. So I think the specialty dining is very similar. You have chops, you have Giovanni's. Now, I've heard Giovanni's on the Quantum class is fantastic. The setup is a little bit different though. On the Odyssey or the Quantum class, you sit kind of outside. It's almost kind of like being on the outside of a restaurant, kind of in a mall type. I liked it. I thought it was very pretty. It was kind of on the Esplanade, but a lot of people don't like it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really pretty, but a lot of people think it's just not as private because people are constantly walking by. We didn't get to experience it sitting there, so I really can't compare. But I thought it was nice. I like to people watch, so that would probably not have bothered me. The dining room on the Odyssey was absolutely beautiful. Service was lacking, but that wasn't because of their fault. I think they were just understaffed. But the food was good. So I think the food's comparable. The dining venues are comparable. I think on the Quantum class, they're probably, it just feels maybe a step above while the food is pretty much the same. So next up is going to be activities, and activities, you know, they're just different activities. So on the Quantum class, and specifically the Odyssey that we went on, they had the North Star, and they also had the iFly, which was amazing. And they also had the bungee jump, which we never went over to. We had planned on it, and then that was the day I got sick, and we just never made it over there. And then obviously the bumper cars. The bumper cars, fun. My son absolutely loved them, but you're gonna wait 45 minutes to an hour. It's gonna take an hour out of your day. And also, they're rough. I mean, they are not easy bumper cars. Like, you are going to possibly have whiplash or need to see a chiropractor after those bumper cars. We went on them 3 or 4 times. My son absolutely loved them, but you know, it was a lot of fun, and you know, no complaints, but it was just something that he really loved. North Star, kind of one and done for us. We did it the first day, and we did it in Fort Lauderdale. We had planned to do it at sea the day that I got sick. We obviously didn't, but it was kind of okay. You get up there. I thought it was going to be really cool, and then we got up there and I was like, okay. I think it would probably, if the day that we're in port, I wouldn't do it. We did it the first day because there was just no other days to do it. I would save it for when you're going to be like at Coco Cay, because I think that's going to be a great day. It's a really beautiful view. We saw it from Fort Lauderdale, and Port Everglades is pretty much just barges and containers, so it's not even as pretty as Port of Miami. So it was cool. It was very cool to do it, but it's kind of one and done. The bungee jump, I would have loved to have done it, but it wasn't something we wanted to do. The iFly was amazing. Highly recommend. I wanted to do it again, just no one else wanted to do it, but it was a lot of fun, and it was just, I thought it was just a really great experience. And then plus our instructor, Miguel, was just really made it for us. But now as far as the Oasis, it's got a lot of different things. It's got the rock climbing wall. Both have the flow rider, so you know, that's it. I did prefer I do like the promenade over the Esplanade, and I can't even explain why. Maybe it's just because I'm used to the promenade, but I prefer the promenade over the Esplanade. Maybe it's just because it's bigger. I really don't know. I just kind of prefer it. Well, I did like it. It was very pretty. It just kind of felt small and kind of cramped. But you know, it was still very cool. As far as the Oasis class, you have the boardwalk, you have Central Park. So both of those are different things. So there's probably not as like those activities as far as that you have to pay, but you're also not going to have to wait. Now you probably do have to wait for the zip line. I remember doing that and having to wait, but again, that's kind of a one and done type thing. But you have the boardwalk is always very fun to walk, and I remember the Symphony had those like climbing things that my son absolutely loved. You know, also I forgot to mention with dining that the Oasis class has Johnny Rockets where the Quantum class does not. So that's a big thing. Now, Johnny Rockets is one that we always say we're gonna go to, and we never do. But it's kind of nice to know it's there. But as far as things to do, I think both have different types of things. But a lot of the things to do on the Quantum class are kind of one and done. They're a lot of fun, but if you're having, you know, it just depends on if you've done it before and also where you're going. I think the North Star would be amazing at Alaska. I know Quantum right now is sitting out of Alaska. I would love to do the North Star out of Alaska. Out of the Caribbean and Fort Lauderdale, it's okay. Now, I've talked about before how much I love Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean is kind of our cruise line. Now, we do love Disney Cruise Line as well for different reasons. Disney Cruise Line and Royal Caribbean are our two cruise lines, but I think they're very comparable in a lot of things, different experiences, but very comparable in a lot of things. We did, my husband and I did go on Celebrity once before our son was born, and while we liked it, the food was fantastic, it just wasn't our vibe. You know, we liked it, but we didn't love it, and we missed Royal Caribbean. So again, you know, similar cruise lines owned by the same company, but it just wasn't for us. Maybe it will be in the future. So the Odyssey, and I kind of get sensing that the Quantum class kind of feels like the gap between Royal Caribbean and Celebrity. It's kind of that middle gap between the two cruise lines. It's kind of a little bit of higher, higher class, I guess you could say, between Celebrity, but it's still Royal Caribbean in a lot of ways. So I think it kind of bridges that gap. And for us as a family, and I think even if we were just a couple, we prefer the Oasis Class. Now, right now, as a family with a 6-year-old, almost 7-year-old, we have chosen to go on Oasis next spring break. So we have already booked Oasis for next spring break. We went on the Odyssey this spring break, but we are definitely going on Oasis. We're going to go on Oasis Class, but we're actually going on Oasis. And there's a couple of things. One, my son loves slides. So he has the great Splash Away Bay on the Oasis Class ship, but then the Oasis now has slides. It has a couple water slides, but it also has the Ultimate Abyss, which he will hopefully be tall enough for by the time we sail next March. So now the Ultimate Abyss is probably something that's going to be one and done, probably I would say like the other things, but knowing my son, he might be one of those ones that goes on it a bunch of times. But that was something that the Odyssey and the Quantum Class lacked. It didn't have, water slides. My son was bored with the Splash Away Bay, and then he just wanted to go in the pool, and the pool is just kind of chill in the pool. And they had movies playing, but when we were there, they just kind of had ads playing. So while the Oasis Class, you have a really great Splash Away Bay, but then you also have some slides. So I think that's, if you have a child, again, that's over 42 inches or even above 48 inches, I believe is the height for the slides on the bigger slides on the ship, then you're probably going to want to do an Oasis Class ship, because if they're going to be wanting to do slides, that's going to be, what they want to do. I think if you have maybe older kids that maybe don't want to do slides or they want to hang out, then look into the Quantum Class. That might be something for them. The hangouts, what I heard for the teens was really, really nice on Odyssey. So that might be something. But I think the Odyssey and the Quantum Class is more for adults. I don't think it's still a family cruise line. It's still Royal Caribbean. It still has a great adventure ocean. But the ship is not so much for kids. There are stuff that kids can do, but it's not so much for kids. So if you had a choice, and I would say we're choosing, for next spring break, and Odyssey was sailing again. And honestly, the Odyssey sailing compared to Oasis was cheaper. But when we thought about it, you know what? We want to go on we miss the Oasis Class ship. So for us as a family, we much prefer the Oasis Class ships. Again, exception is Allure, because the Allure hasn't been refurbished, and it's missing the slides, it's missing the Ultimate Abyss, so it's missing a lot of the refurbishment that the other ships have undergone. But I think once it's done, it's going to be amazing. I just would try and skip Allure. Not that it's a bad ship, because we loved it when we went on it, but compared to the other 4 Oasis Class ships, it's probably my least favorite at this moment. But so of the two, kind of long story short, of the two, do we prefer Oasis Class or Quantum Class? Absolutely, we choose Oasis Class. Nothing against, the Quantum Class. We absolutely loved our cruise on the Odyssey, except for me getting sick. But we absolutely loved it. But we realized that the Oasis Class is definitely more our speed, especially with a son the age that he is in. So with that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.